Let's start with the hero section, and honestly, at the first glance this is looks pretty good, right? The typography is clean, the imaginary feels premium, the overall aesthetic is modern, but good UX isn't about first impressions alone. It's about clarity. Notice how the headline is competing with the product imagery. The products sit directly behind the text area. Nothing is technically wrong, but visually both elements are fighting for attention, right? When users land on a page, they should instantly know where to look at first. Here, the hierarchy feels slightly unclear, right? Now, let's look at the product themselves. The bottles are actually one of the most important visual assets on the page. But because they are sitting in a dark portion of the image, they lose some visual prominence. The products should feel like the hero, right? Instead, they blend into the environment. Next, if you see here, let's look at the CTA. The button exists, but it doesn't command enough attention, right? There is no strong visual pull toward the primary action, right? As a result, users may appreciate the design without knowing exactly what to do next. And finally, the trust indicator. The website tells us that thousands of people trust the brand. That's powerful information behind the corner. Most users won't consistently notice it. And when trust signals are hidden, they lose most of their impact. In this feature section, now let's scroll down and let's see here. This section introduces the brand's value proposition, and this is actually where the budget opportunity exists. If you see here, the first thing I notice is hierarchy. The cards feels visually similar. Everything is asking for the attention at the same time. As a result, users don't have a clear entry point to the content. Next, the imaginary. The photos are high quality, but the feel is generic, right? They feel generic. They could belong almost any health, wellness, or lifestyle brand. Strong branding happens when visual reinforce the specific story you are trying to tell. Now let's examine spacing. Some cards feel tighter, right? Others feel more spacious. These differences are small, but small inconsistencies accumulate and affect perceived quality. The testimonial card draws significant amount of attention, right? Not necessarily because the most important content, but because its visual weight is larger than everything around it. That creates imbalance with the layout. Okay, and now let's move into the lower of the home page. If we see here, the first thing that stands out the amount of the white space. White space is essential, but too much white space can disconnect sections, right? And the exactly what's happening here, the page starts feeling fragmented instead of the continuous. Now let's look at the statistics. Visually they look nice, but some of the metric feel disconnected from the actually brand story. Whenever number feels generic, users trust them less. The logo feels floating object. There's not enough structure around them. As a result, they don't contribute strongly to credibility. And finally, the transition into wellness journey section feels abrupt, right? The content appears suddenly without enough narrative guidance. This breaks the storytelling flow, right? Now let's discuss about the after section. Until now we have discussed about before redesigning. Let's walk through to the after design, after redesign. Okay, in this hero section, if you see, the first thing I changed was that content hierarchy. I reduced the text container width and created more breathing room between the headline and the products. Now users can process the message much faster. I also increase the product visibility using subtle contrast adjustments. The product now stand out without looking artificially enhanced. This immediately strengthens the visual focus. Next, I improved the CTA hierarchy. Okay, the button now feels more intentional and easier to identify, right? Users no longer need to search for the next action. And finally, I moved trust indicator closer to the hero content. Now, credibility is established almost immediately after landing on the page. Let's explore next. Here, I restructured the visual hierarchy within Bento grid. Important information now receives more visual emphasis. Supporting information becomes easier to scan, right? And now I replaced generic imagery with the visuals that better support to the nutrition brand story. Okay, now every image contributes to the overall message. I standardize spacing throughout the layout. This create a clear, more polished visual rhythm. Got it? I also balance testimonial cards so supports the content instead of dominating it. The section now feels much more cohesive. Okay, one of the most noticeable improvements is spacing. I reduced unnecessary vertical gaps and improved section continuity also. Now if you feel significantly smoother, you can feel significantly smoother. I refined statistics to feel more relevant and trustworthy. Now they support brand narrative instead of simply filling space. Okay, I reorganized trust elements into the more structured system. This improves both credibility and visual clarity. And finally, I improved transition into the wellness, the journey section. The storytelling now feels deliverable. Each section naturally prepares users for the next. Okay. Okay, let's conclude this. This redesign provides something I tell designers all the time. Premium design isn't created through more effects. It's created through better decisions. Okay, the original website is already looked good, but by improving hierarchy, readability, spacing, trust signals, and storytelling, we transformed it from a good template into more intentional user experience, and that's often where the biggest design improvement comes from. Okay, hope you got this subject. In case if you feel this good and if you got something from this video, kindly like, subscribe and share. Thank you so much for your love.